can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy skin and we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. Hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
What we gonna eat no money, what we at you, eat no at you. Covid money, miss you, we eat the your little rat you. Use the youth, them money, waste no must a man to statue. Say me like a catch you, but they got in a figure you. Take the spit of money, God and say that it's not you. On the head, the man above him, up him, I got up. Too much it in the kitchen, some of my like a pat too. When singers and DJs and social media's coming at you.
It burn me.
300% free.
It burn me.
Garbage pile of the day.
It burn me.
Give the teacher them raise.
It burn me.
I see corruption face.
It burn me.
Mash down the people them house.
It burn me.
Every day appear arms out.
It burn me.
Appear money them a thief.
It burn me.
And them a sell out the beach.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy skin and we can't buy time. You can't fool me again.
Stibbidim day, stibbidim day, stibbidim day. We in Global TV says certain kind of friend we no cape. And some informer friend we love Lake. We in Global, bona fake friend and bona tape. We in Global, we not promote them, we not support them. Look at them on the cheek, come here represent for. We in Global TV, check it.
Good evening, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Sorry to be late. My system was playing up. Still, I give me a bit of baton ball, but I'll continue with it like this. Good evening on TikTok. Good evening to YouTube. Kathy, how are you? Good evening. To my community of party and all my family members, platform moderators, membership holders, viewers, subscribers, commenters, and trolls, good evening and welcome. Thank you all for joining us. Debbie Jarvis TV. Good evening. Real sweet. Jamrock 8766 RJ. Beat and Teach, Sharon Denard, who else is here? Sophia Hall, Sandra Ellis, Empress Deb, Christine Gilbert, Millicent Jones, Willie Dunn, Estina Tyne, John Bailey. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Like and share the live, please. After over a year of butchering innocent women and children, the genocidal maniac Benjamin Netanyahu has been issued a warrant for his arrest by the ICC. Violet Watson. What, though, does this mean for the butcher, Benjamin Netanyahu, and his genocidal cahoots who have been unaliving children and innocent women for over a year now? A warrant has been issued by the ICC, rebel with a cause. What does that mean? It means that, Raymond G., any of the 164, I believe, country that is a signature to the ICC must arrest Benjamin Netanyahu and his cahoots, as well as the Hamas chiefs that arrest warrant has also been issued for. What this does then do is place a restriction on Netanyahu's movement. Will it stop him from coming to Europe? Yes, it should, because Europe must abide by the ICC ruling. Can Benjamin Netanyahu goes to America? Certainly. As I've often said to you on this platform, most of these international bodies that America force upon you, America do not recognize their jurisdiction, Aston. The ICC is one of such which America does not recognize its jurisdiction. So the Americans are not under a duty, a legal duty to arrest Netanyahu. They could do it morally, but they will not do it. So leave the petulant Americans out of it. I think, thank you, Kathy. I think because the ICC wanting to do this from May of this year, and it was all going around in circle. And I think the removal of Biden, who is blocking a lot of things, may usher certain things forward because of Biden not being able to block things for much longer. Things can speed up. If you notice, he blocked a recent ceasefire resolution. He also ordered long-range missile to be used by Ukraine to hit deep inside of Russia. Whether Biden wants to leave this world in quite a messy and bloody state, or is it that Biden is using anger against the people for the Dems' loss in the election? Whichever it will be, though, if Russia is provoked to that degree, it can only get worse on the planet. Britain, France, in particular, and Germany should step back from encouraging Ukraine to use British or European long-range missile in Russia, because Russia can hit any of you with nukes. It is an unnecessary gesture. One of the things Donald Trump also reiterated, he's going to continue his reassessment of NATO. And I'm hoping that him can quell NATO and bring down the war and the bloodshed of women and children in those Eastern European and Middle East zone that you have these thriving wars, Barbara Simpson. But it is good. It is welcomed that an arrest warrant has now been issued for the butcher. So that limits his movement around the planet. He knows there's a lot of place now that he cannot go. What this also does, it is further isolating Benjamin Netanyahu from the international community. This, with his internal popularity and his pending criminal trial for fraud, it could go one of two ways. One, Benjamin Netanyahu could react like a mad dog backed in a corner, or and rather go out on a crazy affront, or his people could rather turn against him, push him out of power, hastening his trial and pending prison sentence in Israel. So let's hope to see the back of Benjamin Netanyahu, Tony Blair, George Bush, Joe Biden, and all the modern day murderers. Colleen Allen, Vernon Adams, good evening. I see my color. One day, I hope I hit the like button, you know, and don't make the chicken arky between me and us start. Oh, okie dokie. What do we move on to next? Right, I see the Prime Minister's pivoting. Let's hear what the PDF file BBC have to say about the murderer Netanyahu.
Criminal court at The Hague has issued arrest warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Among the things that the ICC is saying it is issuing these warrants for is it's alleged that Netanyahu Gallant used starvation as a tool of war. Just reading some commentary coming through from the ICC. The ICC saying it has reasonable grounds to believe they oversaw attacks on the civilian.
Netanyahu must die in prison for the amount of innocent children that Netanyahu has murdered. Netanyahu must die in prison. He must also answer to the blood of the innocent Israeli that he sent his helicopter gunship to empty multiple helicopter gunship and that party after the Hamas attack. So Benjamin Netanyahu, when it comes to his people, in the last year October attack, has more blood on its hands than Hamas does. They really do. And Benjamin Netanyahu should go to hell in a handcart. Like literally. Who else do we look at now? Right, they are. You know, this morning we spoke about what's rather you call it, the pivoting. The pivoting, they're coming out in support of the Prime Minister's economic netball. Because that's what we're to call the Prime Minister's pivot to a next chapter, you know. Economic football. Now, netball, rather. Because this Prime Minister and him pivoting, there isn't anything that the Jamaica people is going to benefit from it, as the Prime Minister reminds us that the people of Jamaica will, the people of Jamaica will receive tangible benefits from the growth that the Prime Minister is now laying out for the nation in his next chapter. So like it take a decade for you level the playing field, because can't you know, you fix and stabilize the economy and you get the economy ready to grow rapidly. The economy is going to grow rapidly because you have gotten it right. So therefore, it is time now. You fix the chain check, my youth. You fix the chain check. Chain ready to move. It is not very common though, Prime Minister, but I'm sure you are aware that trains do derail at times. But the Prime Minister know that the lies, the Prime Minister and the PSOJ and the IMF knows that the economic argument they've been pushing is not believed by the people. It cannot be seen or be felt by the people. It's only a story that the Prime Minister graces us with regularly. That's all. So when them come with a tangible argument, no, the Prime Minister come with a tangible galangin. What the Prime Minister is saying to you, I'm going to make sure you see the economic growth and you feel the economic growth. Something you can see, something you can touch, not just something that we are telling you about like a pie in the sky that keeps you wondering. We're going to make you see and feel economic progress. It is what the Prime Minister is saying, Sharon Powell. How are you? The Easy Jerk. Joan Bailey. The Prime Minister said, we're going to let you feel it. You're going to you're going to be coming into close proximity with prosperity. You're going to feel it. You'll be able to touch it. You'll be able to rub it against your face. You'll be able to rub your hands against it. Otherwise, Prime Minister, you wouldn't use the word tangible. Because at the moment you're saying to us, the goody that you have done with the economy, straighten out the books, leveling the playing field, set the train and track. If we are to read into your argument, you're saying to us that this is economic growth, improvement, stability that you're not able to see because it has been done at the macro level. That have been done, Patricia Matthews, at the macro level. But what we are going to do in order for you to feel, in order for you to feel prosperity, we're going to come right down a dot. We're going to come right down a dot, come make sure, sir, you can feel it down there. And we wrong for it only have it up the road there, so. So that's what the Prime Minister and his pivot and tangent mean. But I don't know if you heard. I remember if I said it this morning, because you know, say, when you get old, you forget things. But the Prime Minister have a new acronym, you know. I remember if I did tell you this morning. The Prime Minister have a new acronym when he CARE. So you already know saying have Spark, which I tried matches from last year. And it looked like the matches wet up in the Prime Minister pocket. So Spark still can't spark. Then after thingy rather, burial, we hear about reach. When them realize, Josette Williams, that poor people are upping up their eye and say, but we now get a share out of all this grandiose, isn't it, Beckford? So the Prime Minister come up with a conundrum called share, and that is the 15 billion that is to be spread equally between all 63 constituency. Plus, you know, they get a 22 million per MP brata. The Prime Minister on what's it or other night he was at Jamaica House pivoting. The Prime Minister also launched 2 more acronyms. He launched one called Aspire. And then him launched another one called Care. Brittany Bren. Now, Care is more to do with young people. Where's the Ashton? The Prime Minister next direction is a Kendall crash. So Care is about manipulating the minds of young people going to the general election. Prime Minister, the truth is, we must tell you that we don't believe you. And we must tell you, sir, we know better. This is not about Raymond G doing anything for the nation. It is not doing anything for the nation. It is about your favorability, Prime Minister. It's about your electability. Remember, Prime Minister, I think it was last year, wanna remind me, please, or early this year, you told us, vote under my problem, a legacy may I think about. But legacy, Prime Minister, what is your legacy is a question. What can you, Andrew Holness, say is your legacy? What are the things that Andrew Holness has successfully done? Those are the things that you would expect Andrew Holness to be campaigning on. Look at the glory of my 2-term administration. But what is rather happening is the Prime Minister a turn round in a big crowd, money enough minister, in a big crowd, throw egg pani MP them face and say, you all are the ones who cast me where me I go to. Uno cast Jamaica fi nah support me anymore. Uno cast Jamaica to fall out of love with me, Georgia Dennis. Uno cast Jamaica fi think say me a thief. Uno cast the Integrity Commission fi don't certify, even though them are defending me, you know. It is still Andrew Holness failing MPs while Andrew Holness is in a political pickle across the country. Nothing to do with a feckless Prime Minister who has overpromised and underperformed Prime Minister. Hey, Willie Don, how are you? You have overpromised. Our beat and teach don't reach her yet. I've been a Cody, how are you? You have overpromised and underperformed. This is your biggest problem. It is not that anybody has stand in your way of achieving the things you set out to do. When a company employ a new chief executive, that means you need some turnaround within the organization. And You aim also, Michael Nepper, for a successful turnaround. Can this chief executive say that his 8-9 years of tenure at the head of the corporation, has there been a positive turnaround, Joan Bailey? Have there been a positive turnaround of services, of the company's finances? Have there really been a turnaround, Prime Minister? Because it looked like, the Prime Minister wake up overnight and find a lot of money in the kitty. Never until the Prime Minister credibility and popularity start slipping. Then the Prime Minister member say, "Let me walk and share up some of the wealth that I and my friends and the PNP have stolen from the nation." Only a come now if you come fool with. But let's remind you of the grandioso. Because we must remind Andrew, because we are going to hold him to it. We're going to hold him to it up to the next general election. And we're going to remind the people that this is the same man that is coming back to you with promises that has failed to deliver, and his 100-day promises has failed to deliver legislative mechanism that he promises, has failed to deliver a crime plan to the nation that he promised. How then, Andrew Holness, would you expect us to believe any further promise that you want to ditch out? All when you promise to make we're rich and happy, Andrew Holness, you think we would believe it coming from you?
And other renewable solutions will not only lower costs over the long term, but will also reduce our dependence on imported fuel, making energy prices more stable and predictable. Furthermore, we will promote public-private partnerships and incentivize investments in green technologies. Our goal is to make Jamaica a leader in energy innovation in the region, ensuring that affordable, reliable, and clean energy powers our economy. Now, it's not in my speech, but I will remind the audience that we have signed an MOU with Canadian Nuclear Laboratories to further develop Jamaica's capacity in nuclear. I know that it is a controversial topic, and anything we don't fully understand.
I wonder if a batty for nuclear swap with Canada Prime Minister Michelle Lewis Wilson. If you note the other day, I think it was in the Observer. I don't remember for the Observer or the Gleaner, but there was an article that came out. Make sure some pass with the nice no government. Sorry, government a pass with the nice no me is Winston Gibbs. Our media talk say again, nuclear energy. It was just the other day, an article came out in the Gleaner. The precise headline for the article was, Marie, there's no solace in solar energy. There is no solace in solar energy. And that came after an article with Leachin and Andrew Holness and the Canadian them talking about nuclear and Leachin. It's the right time to invest in nuclear, and the Silicon Valley in what's it rather blue yonder will be powered by nuclear. Nuclear, you know. Nuclear, all clear, expensive, clear, Prime Minister. This Prime Minister rather use a hammer I'm live. I'll call you back when I'm done. This Prime Minister regularly use a hammer to crack a nut. When we live in a zone which provide us a lot of sources outside of nuclear for clean energy that doesn't carry a destruction, clean energy that doesn't carry a destructive debris such as nuclear waste. We have 365 days of sun in Jamaica, but still our leaders are trying to convince us that we might not benefit from solar energy. Solar energy, one of the line in the article particular said, might not bring our energy price down. So they're coercing us to say, I'm gonna hit the like button, no man. I will go to my bed, you know. I will go to my bed tonight. The Prime Minister is trying to say to us, it won't be cheaper using solar energy. Nuclear that the Prime Minister is talking about, it's one, very expensive. Two, it is quite dangerous. Three, within our geographical zone, as well as the tropical zone that we live in, and the rapidness of our hurricane, and wherever from the fracking we're having on the island, having more landslide and quote-unquote earthquakes. But this Prime Minister think with all of that, we must pick up another danger and add to whatever danger zone we are placed in. Carlos, what going, bro? We go on my bed because the people them don't want to hit the like button. I will go on my bed. Darrett Elliott, how are you? I will go on my bed. So what the Prime Minister and him friend them are trying to tell us, say, no, make we go nuclear. Nuclear a clean energy and nuclear good for the environment. So is solar panel for solar energy, Prime Minister. So is hydro energy, Prime Minister. So is wind energy, Prime Minister. So I don't understand why you're pushing us down a route of nuclear power to create more danger on the island, to create more high electricity prices, rather than going nuclear, because if not nuclear, rather than going solar energy, because if we go solar energy, whole heap of money will come out of our pocket. Whole heap of money will come out of our pocket. But it's going to happen in time. Jamaican people are copycat, and from them, see people start doing solar panel within their community. Everybody are going to take it up little by little. Marceline Bennett. Everybody are going to take it up little by little. But the nation should not accept this from the Prime Minister. the nation should stand up against this nuclear energy. Jamaica don't need it. Jamaica don't have the capacity for it. We have other sources of clean energy that we can tap into without creating more danger zone for the island. See from them resign, see from United Island Gas, get them 2-year extension license, and they've been drilling, blasting, and fracking all over the place. We've been having earthquake and land slippage non-stop. These are the reason why the Prime Minister keep pushing the argument of climate agenda per UNO. They're not telling you the real truth. That fracking is the major cause of the earthquake and the landslide. They're making it out. Oh, it's what's him call it? Thank you, Kathy. It's climate change. It is climate change. No, it is fracking. It is fracking that is causing the disturbance. Nothing to do with climate change. When we're going to mix up on our crosses one already, and then on blame everything, but I tell you all the while, listen carefully how often the Prime Minister and the Jamaica state is going to be pushing the climate agenda because it's what they have signed up for with their international masters. When the PNP them come in as well, they are going to have to push the same thing because it has come from on high. It has come from those who lend them money so the Jamaica economy don't crash. And Colin Bell and Dr. Man, they have a talk one night. Was it Davis or Phillips? I think Phillips. Have a talk one night. And it tells you, because Colin Bell also comes on a Tuesday night. It tells a lot. And I just want to hold on there. I just want to go into it a bit because there's a bit with Dr. Phillips that I won't be able to explain. It's in context to the Jamaica economy and the Americans and all that, but may I go make Dr. Phillips explain it for UNO. Hold on there. Hold on there. I'm going to bring in Colin Bell in a bit because that bit that Dr. Phillips, hold on, is coming in now. Hold on. Right, we're going to listen to Colin Bell and Dr. Phillips, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Good evening. How you doing?
I'm good enough, my brother. I'm good, my comrade. How are you?
I am good, thanks. I am good.
We don't see much of you these days. What have you been doing? Little backyard farming?
Well,
And listen,
no, I'm doing.
listen carefully because it's an economic argument that I cannot explain to you. So please listen carefully for yourselves.
Some writing from time to time, some speaking at various little events and, you know, trying to do good work still
Of
in
course.
various things. Really
As-
trying to focus on getting the country's economy growing and trying to write down some of my experiences in the political life of the country and in service to the people over 30 odd years and getting it published in some sort of way. So keeping myself active and staying alive.
So we're expecting a book soon.
Hoping so.
That sounds like a good read. Because I mean 30 odd years in public service, Dr. Phillips. In my advertisement, you were the Gleaner Man of the Year for 2015. You have served as Minister of Health, Minister of Transport and Works, Minister of National Security, Minister of Finance, Leader of the Opposition, President of the People's National Party, and I'm sure there are other roles that you have held inside the People's National Party. So a lot of service to this country, and I want to thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Dr. Phillips.
Yes, man.
Go ahead, you were saying something.
No, I'm just saying that, I think that certainly for me, serving your country is the greatest calling that one could have. And it was a pleasure over all the years to be able to do my bit on behalf of the country. One of the disappointments that I've had over the years is to see now how so many people have tried to reduce political service in public life, and describe it as a negative thing. And I think that is unfortunate, because quite frankly, we need our best people to feel called, to feel free to offer themselves to work on behalf of this nation and on behalf of the upliftment of the people of the country. And when people go out and want to describe people in political life in the most negative terms, it's really doing the country a disservice. Which is not to say that there have not been political figures which have not lived up to the highest standards. But in my experience, the vast majority of the people on both sides of the fence have really gone in trying to do their best on behalf of their communities and their people. And maybe we have allowed some bad apples along the way to spoil the reputation of the whole barrel.
So you are of the opinion that most of the people who come into public service, into politics, really meant well?
Yes.
I think so too. Dr. Phillips, over the 30 years, any regrets?
Well, I would have. I don't have any regrets. No, I don't carry regrets. I've always believed that regret is a wasted emotion. There are some things I would have liked to have had a chance to do, which I didn't get the chance to do. But then that is life, and there are things that I got the chance to do that I didn't anticipate that I would have got that chance. So I think I don't have regrets about the process. Overall, and this is one of the things that I'm going to try to spend some time, as much as the Almighty permits me, to really understand the reasons why, as a country, we have not managed to secure a greater quality of life for the country and for the people of the country. Why we haven't done as well as some of our neighbors in the Caribbean. Why we have not done as well as other countries that entered into sovereign statehood
I
at the
don't
same
know how to
time
log out
as
and
we
come
did.
back
I think
in chatting. You're
we
still not
need to
hearing me?
understand these things. I certainly would like to understand it so that there is an opportunity to
Kathy, can you hear me?
help guide the country to the extent that
Can you
we
hear me
can,
now,
even
Kathy?
with just sharing what conclusions we come to, so that, you know, the next 60 odd years is better than the last 60 odd. You know,
Okay, thanks.
we have countries that the famous example that people use is the Singapore example of them coming to Jamaica to look at what was then the miracle of Jamaica's growth in the 1950s and 60s, when we were growing at 6% per annum, and looking at that, and if you compare where they are now
to where we are,
per capita income, and where we are,
Ali
they have
Foster,
outstripped
how are
us
you?
by 10 times. You know, we are still with a per capita income of about $7,000 per person, and they are looking at close to $80,000 per person. And we you know, it's never good to compare yourself, because history is different, opportunities vary for different countries and different individuals, and it can become tiresome. But we certainly need to undertake some self-examination, you know, and that's an area where certainly when I was leaving university, having completed undergraduate studies in 1970, I anticipated that we would have been much further ahead as a country in solving some of the inherited problems coming out of colonial life and the kind of oppressions of colonialism, and the warped inheritances of plantation slavery and the like. You know, gains have been made, no doubt.
Yes.
But you know,
would
I
have
am
wanted more.
one that likes to be complacent because we have made gains. I really want to know always, why are we not at the top of the class?
With the
why
talent we have
not
and
done as well as others?
yes. If you could put your finger on it, Dr. Phillips, what would you say was your best moment, or the moment you feel the best about in your political life?
Well, you know, I think that there are many things that struck me. I think that taking the country from the brink of economic and financial disaster and being part of that cabinet under the leadership of Comrade Simpson Miller, that really struggled hard to get a program of support from the International Monetary Fund and from
Listen carefully,
the World Bank and the IDB, that really took us from the brink of disaster, because quite frankly, there was a view in Washington at that time, in the IMF. It's not a secret. It's been written about in you know, publications like the Financial Times and others, that there were those who felt that they should make Jamaica crash.
Dr. Phillips, I am happy that you pointed out that as one of the moments that you really cherish. And that's where what we want to get into. Tell us, Dr. Phillips, when you came into office after that Bruce Golding, Andrew Holness-led administration, where did you find Jamaica economy?
Well, we were basically, to put it figuratively, on our face as a country.
Flat on our face.
On our face. There was a huge level of distrust in the international community, particularly in the IMF at the time and the World Bank.
What you must take in consideration, remember the whole Dudder swelter at the time, and the US and Jamaica had that standoff, because if Jamaica don't bow to their demands, then Jamaica now can get money to run them economy.
Also, and the IDB, which felt that the Jamaican administration, the one that we succeeded, the JLP administration,
right,
had basically not fulfilled the requirements of the IMF program that they had entered into in 2010, and not met their obligations either in relation to the debt exchange, the so-called JDX that they had.
What he means by not meeting the IMF expectations, it means that the policies, whatever the IMF asks you to implement, whatever mandate the IMF gives you to implement, if you don't pass those tests, then you're not getting the money from the IMF. So you will end up with your economy crashing.
They had entered into with the banks and the Jamaican bondholders locally, and that we were basically, we had taken the money, a lot of which was front-ended, meaning that they gave a lot of money at the start of the program.
Yes.
And that the government of Jamaica had not met its obligations. We were our reserves were dwindling as we got into office, because at that time we were basically closed off from the international community.
So you couldn't get the money for
borrow. Not prepared to lend money except at exorbitant rates. Our credit ratings were very, very negative. The IDB, the European Union, the World Bank, the IMF were not prepared to transfer a single dollar
to Jamaica.
There was the only people that we were able to get international support from at the time would have been Venezuela under the Petrocaribe Fund, which allowed us access to oil, and there were some small Chinese loans that were in the system at the time. But otherwise, there was nothing. And the position was, particularly among all the G7 countries, which are the main creditor countries, that is to say, the US, the UK, the EU countries, which included at that time the UK, but France, Germany, Canada, all of them, was that unless we came to an agreement with the International Monetary Fund, no money could flow. So that there were committed funds, for example, from the European Union, which we couldn't draw down. Committed funds also from the IDB, which we couldn't draw down because of the trust deficit and the bad name
Can
that
I
had acquired.
can I back up a little bit, Dr. Phillips, because you've been in there over 30 years as a senior member. The PNP administration prior to that, the GLP came in power 2007. Where did you leave the economy in 2007?
In 2007, the economy had been making steady improvement because of the having come out of the financial crisis of the late 90s. So debt to GDP was running at about little over 100% of debt to GDP. We were and trending downwards. The economy was growing. Poverty levels were down.
Somewhere about 9%.
Yes, and we were basically making progress. Now, truthfully, there was a major global crisis in 2008. And
the GLP was in power.
The GLP was in power.
Right.
And well, in the first instance, they didn't respond to it quickly.
Good evening, Starboy.
Remember, there was a point when the then Minister of Finance said that the crisis was going to be good for Jamaica.
Yes, it would benefit Jamaica. It wouldn't hurt us.
Yeah. So there was that kind of misconception. We'll put it that way.
Right.
That was there. That proved to be a foolhardy expectation, and quickly the government was compelled, in effect, to go to the International Monetary Fund and secure some support, which they did. But the problem was that they didn't meet the requirements. They never met the targets. There was one test that was successfully completed, and then there was no more on which the fund was prepared to pronounce that they had successfully completed the test.
So they took one IMF test and couldn't take any more.
Yeah, I don't want to make well, they didn't put it that way. They didn't meet the targets for didn't meet their targets for net international reserves. The primary surplus targets, the budgetary targets were not met by the government. There were purchases that were made, for example, of buses without the approval, or in fact contrary to the agreements with the fund, and so the program went off stream.
Right.
There was no more money coming after early 2011, right? It was a 2010 program that was signed in the autumn of 2010, I believe. Going just straight from memory, and it was off the rails.
So as you said,
by 2011, and so when we came in, there was a bare cupboard, in effect.
Nothing.
And there was a bare cupboard.
And nobody would talk to you.
Well, they spoke, but what they were saying was not comforting. They were not willing to come to agreements. We had a review done, We found out, we identified the targets that had been missed, and it took a very long time, as I said, because, and the history is replete ultimately with what the reality was. We spent time in negotiations, we were willing to do the heavy lifting, but there was a strong body of opinion that basically said you cannot trust the Jamaican authorities.
Because
and
people,
despite our efforts,
one
despite
thing people need to understand, Dr. Phillips, is that whether GLP or PNP, it is Jamaica
it
that
is
the IMF
Jamaica.
deals with.
And when Jamaica develops a bad reputation with the international community, the entire population, not just the political leadership, but the population
Suffers.
in that situation. It took a lot of diplomatic effort in which the Prime Minister got engaged, in which I myself got engaged. We had to try to mobilize influence with the people in Congress, in the Black Caucus, in the US Congress, and more widely afield in the administration of that period, the Obama administration, and others, to make the point that, look, Jamaica is going to crash and we can't do anything more. So, you know, because of the influence of the PNP and Comrade Simpson Miller, and
now you understand when Barack Obama did run come Jamaica and force Portia Simpson hand to turn back on the Goat Island deal. Let's continue. Soon done anyway.
PNP generally, there was a visit from a delegation of the US Congress, led by Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who visited the IMF on Christmas Eve in 2012, because we had been in discussions with people supportive of Jamaica to explain that we were prepared to do all the difficult tasks and that we would do it. Because, and that we were not the previous administration, and that any differences of view that we had with the IMF about the things that they were requiring were not because of an unwillingness to do difficult things, but because those things were impossible to do and would have a catastrophic impact on the Jamaican economy. So after, I think they were able to persuade the managing director of the fund, who at the time was Christine Lagarde, about the seriousness of purpose that we had, and that we proceeded then to get a program which was approved in May of 2013. And we proceeded with that program. And one of your question was what area of satisfaction. I was satisfied that we had met, by the time the government demitted office, we had met every single obligation that we had signed to under the program, and in effect had rescued Jamaica's reputation, Jamaica's name. It was a difficult program, but it's an important thing for us to understand as a country. Because
Dr. Phillips, just a minute. Styles FM, we're taking a break on Styles FM and on Caribbean Radio.
I will leave it there for now with Dr. Phillips. But I've regularly said this on here, that Jamaica is not run by who we elect. That's why I'm telling you, so sometimes Andrew just cannot do better. They can do better in the sense of following the IMF policy black letter. And then things will go their way economy-wise, and a level of stability, not growth. But I've asked you before, do you understand that under an IMF and a World Bank structure, the colonies like Jamaica and others who have not had that breakaway like India and such alike will never get the chance to grow? It begs to ask the question, as I continue to ask, should we continue with a Western alliance that regularly dangles a carrot or hold a stick? Or do we, with the already alliance we have with other BRICS members, seek an economic alliance with BRICS in order to allow Jamaica to grow? We will not, under an IMF structure. I never understand it until I did my master's degree, because in the international area, me do it. I never understand the grip that the IMF and the World Bank have over these countries until I did such studies, particularly when it comes to corrupt countries who they distrust the political leaders. And as you heard Dr. Phillips' argument, there was a huge distrust of the Bruce Golding-led regime by the Americans on the institutions of America, such as the World Bank and the IMF. And thereby, they could use that power, one, to strangle the Jamaican economy, or often to draw politicians in line to follow their policies, not the policies that you really vote them in to implement for you. Not the policy that you vote them in to implement for you. It is the policy that suits the IMF, a policy that suits America to keep America and Europe to keep their former colonies in a state of stagnancy. Hence, there's no development. So these countries just work to service the IMF debt or pay interest on the IMF debt. We are never, under the structure of the IMF and the World Bank, we're never going to grow. We have to step away from the visa alliance we have with the West and seek greater economic development. IMF loan only continue to stifle our country. We are never going to develop with IMF loan, because when you take the loans from the IMF and the World Bank, it is the IMF and the World Bank's policy that you have to implement, not the policies that you promise the Jamaica people. So maybe sometime we need to tell with politicians them say, come tell we what the IMF tell you to do, and then we will vote on the IMF policy. But you don't compromise with a lie, and then when you get there, it's only IMF on respond to and not the people. in this new whole development as we're finding out where our economy is, I'm worried for when the People's National Party comes to power. I'm worried for when the People's National Party comes to power because I do think they are going to end up confine a broke piggy bank as well. What that would also do is force Mark Golden and the PNP hands to go back to the IMF, raise the debt, and take more policy from the IMF to implement, and then Mark Golden won't be able to implement his policy that he promised to you. And then who will be pushing those policy along your direction? Dr. the Honorable, dishonorable, pickpocketed Nigel Clark. When you see the pickle, what we end up in? We cannot continue with the IMF and the World Bank. We will never see development. All right, here how we will have a little bit of advancement under the IMF and the World Bank program. We have to have squeaky clean politicians that do not embezzle our money, that do not have 28 bank accounts, does not get involved in kickbacks and all the fraudulent contracts, the misappropriation, money just drop through window and drop down in a hole, so and nobody knows where that money goes to. If we have clean politicians that would make sure them run the country well and make sure the money that them borrow to run the country, them improve the economy and serve the debt. If that was the case where we have honest politicians, at least maybe what we would have had is a stable economy or an economy that is susceptible to growth. But a lot of people don't want to invest in Jamaica because Jamaica's structure top down is corrupt and business people don't like to deal in overt corruption. Business people do get involved in a lot of corruption. What they don't like to do is the overt corruption, especially the extortions and the over wasted bureaucracy and all of that. So we're not going to see the much needed development because we operate in a very cold, corrupt political climate. And all of those things are holding us back. But trust me, I've learned this, and I hope we all wake up to this as a country. We will not go ahead. One thing mash up with agriculture industry is the IMF, you know. It is the IMF that demand those policies. You cannot invest in agriculture. You cannot invest in education. You cannot invest in healthcare. When a country is as corrupt as ours, you have what is called an IMF manager. The IMF has certain different approach where it uses to recoup and control. You have the realistic approach. You have, I think, the radical approach. You have the managerial approach. And in Jamaica's case, it would be the managerial approach because our politicians are so corrupt. You would have the managerial approach applied to Jamaica. What that means, it means the country is run by an IMF manager assigned to Jamaica, not run by the Prime Minister. That IMF manager will tell you on an annual or monthly basis or quarterly or whatever how much you can invest in X, Y, or Z after the IMF has recouped its money, rather be in debt servicing or in what's you call the other one, debt servicing or loan repayment. So maybe it's Nigel that's going to be. And Nigel I go push the Nigel is the managing director, so he's going to push whatever policy Nigel and the Americans them want to push on to Jamaica in order, and then the Americans is not really so hand and glovish with PNP, so Nigel and the Americans them could collapse Bruce Golden first term. So Mark Golden them a liar, them understand the whole of them area anyway. So if them not prepare themselves, Young DT Wagwan, Jeanette Jones, how are you? Evan Bradford. Who else is here? Ada James. Good evening, good evening, good evening. The Easy Jerk, Marie. But my people, we have troubled times ahead. Christine Gilbert, Evan Bradford. We have problems ahead, Denise Hilton. And it don't look, Florence Hamilton, that we are coming out of it anytime soon, because Manika Hawthorne, when this, after the next general election, we likely to see ourselves immersing in more of IMF's debt. Thereby, we roads now go fix. All of them suck me, Sandra, Richard Samuel. All of them suck me where you say Andrew promise. That's why I tell you, don't believe Andrew. It's just to win the election for them and the IMF continue to F up Jamaica. We need multilateral agreement that would protect the Jamaica economy from an American onslaught or an American sanction or America withholding of funds in order to keep Jamaica where it wants it, or not just Jamaica. It is how third world country Monica wills. It is how third world countries are being treated under the IMF Lawrence Wood or the World Bank program. And trust me, as a people, we need to wake up to the world structures and institutions that are still holding us in slavery. Not because on a hearsay, them name IMF and World Bank, it doesn't mean they're institutions that keep the plantation alive and well. This is why we explain to you that slavery moved from shackled slavery to colonization to corporation. Corporation is what they call, Cousin Myrna, how are you? Corporation is what they call independence. But what we were turned over towards these powerful institutions and corporations, institutions such as the UN, the World Bank, organizations and institutions, the UN, the World Bank, the WTO, the WHO, the IMF, and all of that, and all of these systems, corporate slavery, Patricia, yes. All of these systems that they can use to keep us in our place, whether it be through institutions, organizations, or corporations, until we wake up to understand the purposes of these institutions, corporations, and organizations, that they are just different lead roles on the plantation that we still exist. We're never going to get out of the blunder that we find ourselves in. Whether it be JLP or PNP, we're not going to go forward under an IMF program. Trust me, it nah go work. It's just not going to work. I think we're waking up now more and more to see where we are, the effects of it, what our problems are, partly our politicians, partly the institutions and puppeteer masters that pull the strings behind them. The sad reality in all that is the people do not still recognize their power. And it is the power of the people that these government institutions, corporations, organizations, all of them play upon. And until we wake up and take back our power, we are going to still be in a state of complaining. We're just never going to get out of it. We're always going to be in a state of complaining. It is time for us to wake up. We have been sleeping for too long. There's too much liberties for too long. Even when we're moving into a state where it looks like we're walking into famine, opened eye. And our agricultural sector is getting more and more depleted. More and more. The government has all kind of money for waste, but the government cannot invest in agriculture. Why do you think the IMF want the Jamaican agriculture and fisheries industry to be destroyed? Those were two of Jamaica's booming economic drivers. If Jamaica can feed itself, Jamaica don't have to borrow money to buy food. If Jamaica can feed itself and sell its food to the rest of the world, Jamaica don't have to borrow money from the IMF and the World Bank to the tune that it borrows. If Jamaica invests in agriculture, that drives productivity and boosts the economy. It's not just into agri-producing, it's also agri-processing. That would also drive a lot of job creation, a lot of investment with people who have factories, agri-processing factories in Jamaica. Why you think modern day we still use hoe and shovel in a farming because they want to keep us in our place. Why you think we have backside? Where America get all these precious material out of backside to make B-52 B-52 bomber, F-5 bomber, all of them mechanism where you see America flying at the air to war. We're contributing to that. But we're not earning from it. Why you think it is structured for us to give away our backside free to nothing and then turn around, go borrow from the same people them what we give away backside to Philip and nothing? Jamaica people, if we don't wake up, we're not going to get a share of the wealth. This is why you see the share of the wealth, the share of our wealth is between the Americans, the Europeans, and we thieving politicians them. We don't get none out of it. It's about them and we enriching America institutions such as the World Bank and the IMF. The slave colonies, are a profit revenue for the IMF and the World Bank. If ask any thief in lawyer will study international business and finance. If they don't tell you the truth, they are lying to you. We're not going to move ahead with the IMF and the World Bank. They just see us as a money-making tool. It's the colonies that keeps the IMF and the World Bank going. Just like how you see when they claim so them free with slavery, would he have to play the plantation master them? It's the similar thing that we are in with the World Bank and the IMF. You think the World Bank and the IMF want with to pay off with it? That's the last thing they're concerned about. Is concerned about is that you keep taking more money and you keep getting in more debt, so they can enforce more of their draconian policies on you. They can come in and run your country down to your municipality, because who pays the piper calls the tune. And money make people dance. And we now give a politician them money. So they're not dancing for us. So open and learn. So if we wake up and take back with power, if we don't take back with power, we're never going to get a share of what it is that we're to get a share of on this planet. We're going to be continuously in poverty. We're going to continuously race to the bottom, because our leaders are not honest to us. Them don't honest to us until them come out of office, because them can't tell us the close relationship they have with the IMF when they are in office, because probably we wouldn't vote for them. Wake up, Jamaica. Wake up. When will they have a bet as to when Jamaica become a failed state? Jamaica has been a failed state for quite some time. You know, Jeanette Jones. It has been a failed state for quite some time, because the day we refuse to follow the IMF policy, we will see worse than what they did to Michael Manley with sanction and food embargo and CIA violence and all sorts. The day we refuse to follow or be led by the IMF, it will be calamity in Jamaica. Say you hear it right here on Global Television. Thank you very much for being here with us tonight. Did we miss anything else we want to talk about? Oh no, just Arbin Hill and Metro Seaga, because Metro Seaga is one of them who come out behind the Prime Minister pivot, because you know this was about the private sector and the IMF. It really wasn't about the Jamaica people. So the all of them come out, come gang up Panway, like Arbin Hill, Metro Seaga, and everybody. But thank you all for being here tonight. It's good to have your company and your support as always. Join us back tomorrow morning for the At a Glance program. Thank you very much to my moderators and all my supporters. Thanks to TikTok. Thanks to YouTube. Kathy, thank you very much. Thanks for your support. Hans Hart. Hanat. Oh, this thing always call Hanat man something then. No, so me I learn over here, so. Me I learn over TikTok. Thanks, Kathy, for your Hanat. Me always hear them call out for that same thing they them play a game in Hanat. Don't so me get one Hanat. Murder. Anyway, thank you all very much and good night from the Global Television Group.
I truly believe our political system needs some fixing. Too much you hear about corrupt politicians and nothing happen. Too much you hear about politicians who take away poor people money and none of them reach in jail. And to the young people at home or wherever you are, and to all Jamaicans, I have one question for you. Take a look at your communities. Take a look at the sliding dollar. Take a look at the failing healthcare and ask yourselves, where is the progress? Where is the progress that this arrogant and disrespectful government keeps talking about? With this existing callous government, matters have gone from bad to worse.